Good evening, everyone. I call to order the January 8th tax budget hearing for the Cincinnati Public School Board. We welcome everyone in their audience and ask everyone to silence their cell phones or electronic devices. I need a motion to elect a treasurer pro tem this evening.
So, okay.
We need a person.
Brandon Craig, Vice President Craig.
We have a nomination for Vice President, for Board Member Craig, when we'll do our organizational meeting in just a second. Is there a second for Board Member Craig?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Craig, for serving as our treasurer pro tem this evening. All right, Mr. Gusta, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Craig?
Excuse me.
Here.
Ms. Mapp?
Present.
Dr. Moffitt?
Here.
Mr. Morosky?
Here.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Here.
And President Wendy.
Here. Thank you very much. So we have, for those joining us this evening, the first meeting of the year is a little unusual because we have a series of small meetings, the first of which is our tax budget hearing. After this meeting, we will have our board members sworn in and our organizational meeting for the year. So with that, I'd like to invite up Mr. Ashley for our presentation.
On. Yes, so how are you all today? Good to see you. I know you have a long meeting ahead of you, so my part will actually be quite brief. So there are two things in the board docs that include a PowerPoint presentation as well as a tax budget report. I'm just going to go over the presentation, but certainly if there's any questions related to the report, we can talk about those, but that will actually get filed with Hamilton County. So the purpose of the tax budget, it's prepared in response to requirements of the Ohio Revised Code. It conforms with the modified, or sometimes referred to as the alternative tax budget reporting requirements. If you recall, in December, the board passed a resolution requesting that the county budget commission allow us to file the modified tax budget, which is really what they recommend or suggest for us to do. School districts are required to do it each January, so we'll be back here every year doing this. It provides a basis for the Hamilton County Budget Commission's review of the next calendar year's local property tax revenue rates, millage rates, as well as fiscal year. So it's complicated because the tax rates are pretty much determined on a calendar year. Obviously, we function on a fiscal year, July to June. So this tax budget kind of reports both ways. It shows what each calendar year's portion would be, as well as our fiscal year. The next slide is a summary of all of our debt. One of the things about the tax budget, it is only required for the general fund and then the voted debt fund. One of the things that we've always done for transparency, the Treasurer's Office, is to go ahead and give you a summary of all of the debt, not only that is supported by the property taxes, but as well as certificates of participation. We have some limited tax general obligation security or obligations there as well. So the first line is the bond levy. That goes back to the facility master plan back in 2001. That was originally $480 million. The projected balance as of July 1 of 24 will be $193.4 million. And the report kind of details that out a little bit more. The unvoted categories, again, these are not really required to be part of the tax budget, but we include them for full transparency. So this gives you the combined total of $390 million of all of those obligations. Next slide. Again, talking about the required elements, I kind of already covered this, the general fund and then the voted portion that's paid out of the debt service fund. One of the things that we do here as well is because of the recent changes in value, those have been incorporated into our forecast module, and our consultants have helped us work through how that will impact the next fiscal year as far as tax revenues. The next slide. So the key thing we want to show here is for the voted debt fund, is there enough projected tax revenue and other revenues to cover the principal and interest payments that are due? And so you'll see here for both calendar years, it does include that. It includes enough resources to cover those payments. Next slide, we kind of did the same thing with the unvoted. A lot of this is through transfers from the general fund. So with all of the revenues included, you've got 24 million versus 21.7 in expenditures for calendar year 23. And then obviously I actually have the wrong years on there now that I think about it. Maybe 24 and 25. That would make more sense. So we'll check that. I think that concludes the presentation, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Thank you very much. Are there questions from any board members? Ms. Bolton.
Much. Thanks for the presentation, and especially its brevity. But I do think maybe for the public's sake, you mentioned the new valuation. How does the new valuation impact us when the county goes through and does new valuation to property? Does that help us, hurt us? I mean, it's certainly major public discussion out there. And I know that the word schools keeps coming in a lot of those conversations. If you could talk a little bit about that, I think that'd be great.
So we have some preliminary numbers. They just released the reduction factors on their website last week. So one of the things that our forecasting software does is tries to anticipate that. So the key thing there, I'll give you for instance, on the bond levy. The bond levy generates enough money to pay the debt. So as values go up, the district does not automatically receive that much millage. For instance, it was 4.5 mils last year. The county has already told us the millage for that levy is going to be 3.25 mil to generate the same dollars. Our emergency levies work the same way. For instance, the preschool levy generates $48 million, the combined levy. So they've changed the rate. They've already told us what the rate is going to change, so that across all taxpayers, residential and commercial, it will still generate $48 million. So therefore, each individual taxpayer, if their property values went up on average with everyone else, they'll pretty much be stagnant. If they had additions and it went up, that would change as well. The other thing now, new construction does generate a little bit extra dollars in terms of some of those levies. But in other words, if values across the board went up 20%, we do not anticipate seeing that revenue because of those changes. House Bill 920 holds the property owner harmless when values go up. So that's one reason those reduction factors are in place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any other questions for Mr. Ashley or the administration? Okay, we have next our first of two hearings of the public this evening. Mr. Hoying, do we have any online speakers or Rob? None tonight online. I think we have one in-person speaker for hearing of the public, which is Cincinnati Federation of Teachers President Julie Sellers.
Good evening, everyone. One of the things that I wanted to talk about this evening, and I think that it's really important that, I don't know how many of you have looked at your property tax increases, but across the board, they are going up significantly for many people. The people that I have talked to, and I spent a few hours today on it and a few hours last week on it, there were people who anywhere from the average of about $600 a year increase up to $3,000–$4,000 a year increase with the same property values, or a significantly, just a small increase. Everyone that I've talked to, and the word on the street is, oh, well, CPS is getting a lot more money. And I think that it's really important that the public is aware that even with these increases, we're really not getting a lot more money. There are some places, it's really interesting, they must have gone in to have their property reevaluated. Their property's values went down, but yet, and which kept their property taxes about the same amount as what they were paying previously. So it's all over the board, and it depends on if the property is abated, not abated, if the values went up. We have not been able to do an overlay of those TIF districts and the impact of the taxes in those TIF districts. But I think that the district, and I've contacted the Enquirer, that they should do a story that this is not producing a lot more money for us as a district. And that the people know that they're paying more in taxes, but it's not going to the district. Because when you see the pie chart shows that CPS gets the majority of their tax dollars. So I'm not sure where those extra additional tax dollars are going to go, and we haven't been able to figure that out. But I would imagine that many people are paying more because a lot of people are paying less. A lot of this new construction is almost all abated construction, and it's 15, 20, 25, 30 years, depending on the project. So that, I don't know how you're going to get ahead of that, but it is something that I think the roosters have come home to roost. We've been saying for years, eventually, all of these abatements with people paying less, other people are going to be paying more. And I think that now it's a significant increase, and people are going to say enough is enough. So I don't know how, as a city, we are going to handle that, but I think it's going to possibly have people say, I can't afford to live in this city any longer because my property taxes are going up too high. So that's all that I wanted to say, but it is a problem. I think there needs to be some public op-eds put out for people to have a clear understanding of where their increases of dollars are going. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that's going to conclude our first hearing of the public this evening. We'll have another one that comes in our regular business meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the modified tax budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year? Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Any discussion on the motion to approve the resolution? Hearing none. Mr. Guston, would you call the vote, please?
Bolton,
Aye.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp, Dr. Moffat, Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg,
Yes.
President Lindy.
Yes. Okay. This adjourns our tax budget hearing. Thank you. I now call to order the organizational meeting for the 2024 calendar year. For an abundance of caution, I'm going to ask Mr. Guston to call our roll one more time.
Ms. Bolton,
Present.
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Ms. Mapp,
Present.
Dr. Moffat, Mr. Morosky.
I have a quick point of privilege before I respond. Quick. Do we have to wait till 6 p.m. to start this one?
I think that's going to, Mr. Mistrowski, great question. I think it's up to the group of board members. If people have guests who are not going to come until 6, I would like to make sure we can wait. If folks don't have guests, then I think we can continue to keep moving. I'm very happy to wait until 6 if people would prefer. Can I just ask, Mike, do you have a preference?
No, I'm okay. I didn't know if we could start it before 6 since we noticed it at 6. I'm fine.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Mrs. Weinberg, do you have a preference?
We can wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Listen to Pat.
Well, let's make sure we do that then. So I appreciate that, Pat. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. If everyone will hang tight for 13 minutes, we will start our next meeting in 13 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and I'm excited to call to order the organizational meeting for January 8th, 2024. We welcome everyone and ask everyone in the audience to silence their cell phones or electronic devices. Mr. Guston, as a point of order, I want to confirm that we do not need to have an additional motion for a treasurer pro tem. We can still use Mr. Craig, or do we need to motion for a new one?
Let's ask legal on that one, but I get a thumbs up, so I think we're good.
Okay, in that case, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Ms. Bolton,
Present.
Mr. Craig,
Still here.
Ms. Mapp,
Present.
Dr. Moffat, Mr. Morosky,
Here.
Mrs. Weinberg,
Here.
President Lendy.
Here. We're going to move to the next item on our agenda here, which will be the oath of office for new and returning board members. And I think that we can do this in any order. Mr. Hoying, are you kind enough to do our oaths for us? And then Ms. Mapp, would you like to go first as you are our newest board member? And Ms. Mapp, you don't need to have anybody, but if there is anybody who's come who would like to come up with you, that is 100% fine. I'm going to have my family come up with me.
Anybody want to come down?
Come on, family.
Don't be shy. Come on.
The family has been called.
Gotta make it
Please come down, family. Please come down.
Okay, come. Here's the cutie pie.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Raise your hand. I, Kendra Mapp, do solemnly swear
I, Kendra Mapp, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of a board member
discharge the duties of a board member
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
during my continuance in office.
during my continuance in office.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Mapp. Next, we have Ms. Bolton.
Present. Would Ms. Davis and Ms. Bruckner join me? Great. Get over here closer.
You ready?
No, not yet. You good? Whatever you
Just be behind you, because that's where we are.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it.
I, Eve Bolton, do solemnly swear
I, Eve Bolton, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of a board member
discharge the duties of a board member
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
during my continuance in office.
during my continuance in office.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Fred.
Congratulations, Ms. Bolton. If I could ask my family to come down. Ready.
I, Ben Lindy, do solemnly swear
I, Ben Lindy, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of a board member
discharge the duties of a board member
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
of the Board of Education of the Cincinnati City School District
during my continuance in office.
during my continuance in office. Okay, thanks everybody. Can we get a round of applause for our new 2024 Cincinnati Public School Board, please? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item on our organizational meeting agenda, which is the election of the president. And I'm going to ask for nominations in a moment. But before I do, as I am our outgoing president, I hope I could spend just a minute saying thank you for the chance to be this board president for the last 2 years. When I became board president, we were in a very different place. You might remember that we were in the middle of a search for a new superintendent, that 3 of 7 board members had just been elected, meaning that a majority of our board was in their first term. And we were still very much in the last throes of COVID, as Omicron cases were spiking across the country, shutting down airlines, and about a week after that meeting, the Cincinnati Public Schools. When I was running, I shared a document with all of you laying out the 3 priorities that I wanted us to pursue if elected. The first was selecting an outstanding superintendent. The second was committing to a governance coaching program so that we build in strong governance practices with our new board. Third, I was hoping we could approve an ambitious and inspiring strategic plan. And as I prepare to exit this seat, I want to say thank you to all of you for helping us accomplish, I think, all 3 of those things. We hired Superintendent Wright, an extraordinarily talented national leader for children. We spent 2 years doing good work on student outcomes-focused governance with the Council of Great City Schools. And we adopted this fall our strategic plan aligned to a set of measurable goals and guardrails that we had adopted the previous December. So again, I want to say thank you and express my gratitude for the chance to lead alongside all of you to make a difference for children. And I'm very excited to see where we can go next. So with that, I would like to ask, are there nominations for president of the school board for this next year?
I'd like to nominate Eve Bolton for president.
Thank you, Mr. Moraski. Are there any other nominations for board president? I would like to nominate Mr. Brandon Craig. Are there any other nominations? Okay, we're going to close nominations. We have had a practice, since I've been on the board at any rate, of giving people running for president or vice president a chance to share any brief remarks. They certainly need not do so, but they are welcome to do so. Ms. Bolton or Mr. Craig, do either of you have any remarks that you would like to share? Ms. Bolton.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll take but a moment or two. Again, I want to thank you for your leadership these 2 years as we have done very important things and frankly looked very much internally in an effort to get ourselves ready for about which we're to embark in very serious efforts outwardly, if you will, as we look at the 6 collective bargaining agreements that are up this year for our many thousands of employees. We also have the biggest and some of the most significant budget adjustments facing us frankly in 15 or so years. We also have to implement as best we can, as you mentioned, a very aggressive strategic plan and also possibly aspects of our ad hoc committee work. And then also, to be very honest, we have to continue to reinvigorate our whole child infrastructure in this district, and our partner network as best we possibly can made us very successful in so many ways. But the other piece I would just like to emphasize is that we as a public school system in an urban environment, we're going to have to spend a significant amount of our time also as a board, no matter who's president and no matter who else is going to be helping us out, we're going to have to spend some significant time protecting the diversity of our students, the progressiveness of our curriculum, the academic freedom of our staff. We're going to have to protect, if you believe it or not, our commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion, which is under assault from Columbus, at least here in this state. And we're also going to have to continue to work to make sure that all of the local dollars that are generated by our generous taxpayers, as much as possible, stay here and come to the schools as they should. And then, very frankly, we're going to have to make sure that this board protects our district and our district citizens, that we keep control, local control of our schools, reflecting our community's our values. And then finally, like any time, and this is I'm proud to say, fifth term, we have to spend every day trying to be worthy of the trust that folks have placed in us. And very frankly, we have to also be capable of making the decisions that are in front of us. And I have great confidence in this board, everlasting confidence in our staff, and everlasting confidence in the support that our citizens have continually shown this district for almost now 200 years. So pleased to serve in whatever capacity, and pleased to serve with the people that are at this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Mr. Craig.
Yeah, so want to say first, before I begin, that I want to thank President Lindy for his leadership over the last 2 years. I know, again, as we changed superintendents and leadership in the district, it's not an easy task to take on. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank prior president, Ms. Jones there, also for taking the helm of leadership at a time where the district was facing a global pandemic, where the world was facing a global pandemic. Neither one of those times were the most ideal things for our district to be dealing with, but they were something that was a necessary part of our evolution as a district. And I think as we come upon this time now where we're changing the guard once again, it's important for us to remember that this is about how do we keep building a district that is stronger, better, and more prepared as we go through the future. Now, a little bit about myself is I'm a very systems-driven person. So for those who don't know me, I just believe that in order for an organization to be successful, it's not just about having great talent. but it's about giving the talent the right systems in place so they can be successful. And so that's why I would be focused on as board president is not to manage people, but to manage processes, to make sure that we're doing things the right way, that make sure that the district operates in the right way, make sure that the will of the board is established, communicated, and executed. You know, with that responsibility comes an obligation to ensure that the board has the necessary information to make decisions, the time to make those decisions, and that we're clear about what those decisions mean for our district. So as board president, I would let 4 concepts kind of guide my leadership. The first is being focused. I think as board president, I would work on to build an agenda calendar for the full year so that we can be better prepared and get more work done. You know, we don't need to wait till the last minute to get things done. We don't need to wait till the end of the time to get things done. We can do that. And I think also by setting those priorities and have that focus, it will allow us to address so many things that are going to come before us. So in doing that, I would work with the vice president, the superintendent, the treasurer, the internal auditor, the board staff, and others within our district to identify those actions that need to be done when they need to be done and get them on our calendar as early as possible. We started doing this with our goals and guardrails monitoring, but we can do this so much more so than just with that. The second concept that really would guide my leadership is being effective, or the effectiveness of the district. I think of effectiveness with 2 words: efficient and thorough. You know, it's a part of being on our board here is that we have to make things that are priorities be our priorities. We have to set those priorities as a board and then adhere to those and make sure they get done. But if we do that, and we're smart about it and we're responsible about it, that leaves opportunities to do so much more. It leaves opportunities to hear from you all in the community, to hear time. It leaves us time to fully address things in a manner in which it will allow the district to be successful. I think we still must be thorough about that. And when I think about being thorough, I think that means making sure that we've set clear expectations with regard to communication. And that's not communication just from the board to the community, or district leadership to the board, or the board to the district. That's all of us being a part of that conversation. Make sure that we have a full breadth of thought and that we are very clear that we're operating with one voice as a board. At the end of the day, we as a district must make sure that we're looking out for our children and our students, families, our partners, and everyone along the way. We only can do that is if the board is effective in its leadership of the district. The third concept that comes to my mind is accountability. I think each one of us board members have a responsibility to be accountable to not just those who supported us along the way and voted for us, but for all those folks who come to our schools every day, who work in our schools every day, who partner with our schools every day, that we have that responsibility to do so. And so I would like to work with the vice president to begin building a set of board operating procedures. These board operating procedures are something to help guide us in that how does the board communicate with each other? How does the board work with each other? How does the board be more effective? We did a great job, and I want to give a lot of credit to the policy committee and the policy committee chair and the folks that were on the policy committee for leading the way on our board bylaws. That's only one step. And I think having a set of operating procedures that allow us to understand how to communicate better, how to work through some of the difficulties that we've seen for the last few years better, will allow us to be a stronger board and will allow us, again, to get more things done. Finally, I really think the thing that would be really guiding my direction for the next, if elected for the next year, would be transparency. We are going to be doing a lot of things this next few years. We have a lot of things that are going to be on our agenda for the next few years. And it's important that we are transparent, not just with each other, not just with the district, but with everyone about how hard those things will be. That there will be challenges, that there will be questions that need to be answered, there will be things that need to be done that are not going to make everybody feel great and wonderful. But if we're upfront with you, if we're clear with you, if we allow you to have a voice as part of that conversation, we can do those hard things and still provide great education for our students in this district. So that's what I am really focused on. I'm really making sure those 4 things guide my way. Because at the end of the day, to me, this is about the children in our district. Am I doing enough to make sure that they have a great quality education? Am I doing enough to make sure that everyone who works in our district has an opportunity to be successful? One of the other principal ideas that I want to mention is that I think if we able to do these things, if we're able to be more efficient with our time and more effective with our time, we can open our time up more to the community. Because I've been on the board, we haven't done community forums. We haven't done these big sessions outside of for specific causes. And I think that's something, if we as a board are more effective in our use of time and more efficient in our use of time, more focused in our priorities, then we can turn some of these board meetings that we have into town hall discussions, where we give an opportunity for the community to tell us not just what's not working, but what's working, to tell us where they see challenges and where they see growth. That's something for the board to be able to hear, and not on a one-on-one basis, but from a larger group. So again, I really would like to put the challenge to us to really build our districts even further, to keep evolving our district as we go forward. You know, I'm proud to be a CPS graduate. I am very proud to be a CPS board member, but I would be even more proud to be board president.
Thank you very much, Mr. Craig. So we've had nominations. We closed nominations. We've given each of the folks who are running a chance to make a few brief remarks. And so unless I'm forgetting anything, and I'm just looking down to check, because at least once this evening, I've already forgotten something. The way we've done this in the past, Mr. Gustin, is you just go call everybody's name and they'll say the person that they're voting for. Okay. Thank you much.
Okay, Ms. Bolton,
Bolton,
Mr. Craig,
Craig,
Ms. Mapp,
Craig.
Dr. Moffett,
Bolton.
Mr. Morosky,
Bolton.
Mrs. Weinberg,
Bolton.
President Lindy.
Craig. So congratulations, President Bolton. I'm going to trade seats with you.
oops, wrong hand.
I, Eve Bolton, do solemnly swear
I, Eve Bolton, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of President of the Board of Education
discharge the duties of President of the Board of Education
of the Cincinnati City School District
of the Cincinnati City School District
during my continuance in office.
during my continuance in office.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Hoy.
Yep.
I think we forego the president's message because we do that in our nomination process. So I think we'll move on. And for the next item in our agenda is the nominations for vice president of the board. Do I have any nominations for vice president of the board?
I'd like to nominate Board Member Weinberg.
Thank you, Dr. Moffett. Are there other nominations for vice president of the board?
President Bolton, I'm trying to decide whether or not to run for vice president of the board, and what I
You want
would
me to encourage you
what
or
I would lo-
discourage you?
what I would love to be able to do is ask the other nominee a quick question.
All right.
Thank you. Where is Mrs. Weinberg? There she is. So in addition to a general desire to support a smooth transition, my other reason potentially for running would be to continue our commitment to good board governance, specifically to the model for those listening to the student outcomes focused governments that we adopted 2 years ago. And if people are not familiar with this, the idea is that our most important role as a board is to hold the administration accountable for results. And not just any results, but results that are aligned to the multi-year goals that we adopted as a board. Those goals reflect extensive community engagement and capture the most important hopes and values our city has for its children. And we were going to sustain our focus on those for multiple years. The only reason I would want to run is I believe that this kind of monitoring and accountability is job number one for us. I think a lot of us do. And that we make it harder to achieve results for children when we as a board start to get involved in management, which is the job of the administration. We set the destination, we hold the administration accountable, they figure out how to get us there. My question is, are you committed to those same things? Because if so, I would love to support you.
Thank you, Board Member Lindy, for the question. And yes, I am in support of those things.
In that case, there is no additional nomination
No more nominations?
from me.
Any more nominations? Therefore, the nominations are closed. And so, Mr. Considine, we will start our roll call.
All right, I'll try to do this right. Mr. Craig?
Weinberg.
All right. Mr. Lindy?
Weinberg.
Ms. Knapp?
Weinberg.
Dr. Moffitt?
Weinberg.
Mr. Morosky?
Weinberg.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Weinberg.
And President Bolton.
Weinberg. Congratulations. We have a new vice president.
Did I do this first or do this? I'll go ahead and say my, do you want to do this first? Okay, all right. I'm out. Okay.
Yeah, of course. I, Mary Weinberg, do solemnly swear
I, Mary Weinberg, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of Vice President of the Board of Education
discharge the duties of Vice President of the Board of Education
of the Cincinnati City School District
of the Cincinnati School District
during my continuance in office.
during my continuance in office.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Welcome to the bad kids end of the table, Brandon.
Reservations about having Mr. Craig and Mr. Morosky sitting close together as chair, watching to the right. I know.
Thank you. Bring the snacks on down to the snack section.
All right. I actually had a lot to say, and I want to first thank Board Member Lindy for stepping down, and I promise to do my best in this Vice President role. So to everyone, first, President Bolton, thank you. I'm so honored. And I would like to first thank former Vice President Craig for his leadership and for the work that he started. I do look forward to expanding on the work, and I'm very, very excited to not only be sitting in this seat, but I'm excited to continue the work. I know that I'm going to give what is needed in order to fulfill this role and the effort that might be needed. I look forward to working with this board. I look forward to working with the superintendent and ensuring that the vision for this district is being met. I'm extremely excited. I'm dedicated to the future of this board, and I'm also dedicated to this district. Thank you all again. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that I make you proud.
Again, according to the published notice agenda, we will now go towards the appointments. And if those of you that are here at the table will look at this rather large piece of paper that's coming by your way, it's the chart of the organization and appointments for committees. And we need to go through that, and the public will recognize we do the public's business in public. So as chair, it's the responsibility of the new president to help propose and facilitate the selection of our committee membership and also appointments that the board is required to make. And I appreciate board staff's work on creating this chart. And I'd like, if we could, to ask, first of all, if there's any board member that, looking at this chart before you that we've had for this last week, if there's any issue or any point of order, whether you want to remove your name, add a name, if you have a question about it, if you have that, that would be a great service to the chair. We'll start with Vice President and then go to Member Morosky.
Yes, thank you, President Bolton. I do actually have something that I would like to remove my name from the Policy and Equity Committee. And then in addition, I had a question regarding one of the positions listed here, the Hamilton County Addictions Response Coalition. I would just like to maybe have a little bit of further discussion on that to possibly see if that is something that is needed to stay, or just a little bit more understanding of what that position is. And then I also would like to add my name for something for the Student Achievement Liaison.
Okay, so we have a removal from one committee, and we have a question about one area of the appointments, and you would now like to place your name in the Student Achievement Liaison.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Member Morosky, and then we'll go to Member Lindy.
Thank you, President Bolton. In looking at this and seeing that nobody had listed their name for legislative liaison, and being that I'd done it for, I think, for 3 years or so, I'd like to resume that position again, or at least put my name on there in addition to whoever else would like to.
Thank you very much, Member Morosky. So we'll add Mr. Morosky's name, and if there's other items too, this doesn't mean everything's done, but I appreciate the additions, and we'll come back to the question that the Vice President had, but we'll go to Member Lindy for his comments, and then we'll go to Member Moffitt.
This was in response to Mrs. Vice President Weinberg about the Addiction Response Coalition. So this was Commissioner Driehaus had reached out in December, and the Hamilton County has had this ongoing Addiction Response Coalition for some time. They were hoping to include, at least for this next year, some representative from the school system. And she was clear with me that they would love somebody from the CPS board. It may not be an ongoing position for a CPS board member. So next year it might not be on here. They may want a representative from a different school district or from the ESC, but they would love to have some representation from us for this year. Seems like a great group doing really important work.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. I have been contacted by two people that one is in the suburban district, and another is part of the Charlotte Oaks group. And I would like to follow up with, if we could, and just take the privilege of the chair unless there's any discussion against it, I'd like to hold that one off if we could, just for this evening and to get a little bit more, because I think we have some other interests that are our colleagues in Hamilton County that might want to serve. That would be my recommendation, but doesn't have to go through if there's, I hate to disappoint Commissioner Driehaus, but I also want to be able to live and work with all these other school districts that are facing so many of the same challenges that we are as well. So it would be just to delay that if that is okay and suits the board.
This is not something I have a strong opinion about whatsoever. That she had requested somebody, and I wanted to make sure there was a fair and transparent process so that if anybody wanted to put their name in, they could do so. It's not an area where I feel like I have any particular expertise. And I'm happy to allow for strong participation from somebody else.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy, and thanks for bringing it to the board for consideration, and we'll keep it on our list, and board staff, if you'll be sure to kind of keep that on the horizon for us as we find out more information. That would be great. Let's, if we could, I think we want to do the committees first. Oh, sorry.
So I wanted to withdraw my name from Policy and Equity Committee, add my name to Health and Safety. I also wanted to withdraw my name from the Business Advisory Council, since there are 3 of us that have requested that for one spot. That's it.
Okay, it's just to repeat, you are withdrawing from policy
Yes.
and you are adding to health and safety and you are withdrawing from the business advisory.
Yes.
Any other additions, corrections, suggestions, concerns? Let's go then to the committees if we could. And first, for the benefit of the public, our committees have, we have a number of standing committees. And recently, in the last many months, we've had ad hoc committees and have done that before. And those are committees that are not our standing committees. Our standing committees, since you may or may not have that before you, are Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee. And there needs to be 3 board members on it in order to for us to proceed. Policy and Equity Committee, and there has to be 3 board members for that committee. And Health and Safety Committee, there needs to be 3 members also on that committee. What we do with the most important work we do is former President Lindy, and we get to use that as we did with Ms. Jones. The Student Achievement Committee and District Instructional Performance Committee, which has weird kind of letters in the alphabet, we could call it, but it is not a regular business committee meeting, but what we do there is concentrate indeed on student achievement, and it's the whole board that participates. And in the state of Ohio, we kind of call that a committee of the whole. So everybody is a part of that. So let's go to the Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee. I'm going to withdraw, obviously, my name from Finance, which will now leave Budget and Finance for Craig, Lindy, and Moffitt. And within those 3, later on, at another time, a chair and a meeting date on a monthly basis will be selected. So without further concern, are we comfortable with that makeup of that committee? Thank you very much. Then we go to Policy and Equity, and again, I will withdraw my name from that for obvious reasons. And so has Member Moffitt. Make sure I'm doing this right. That would then be Craig, Lindy, Mapp, Morosky, which means we have 4 on that committee. Is anybody on that committee except the chair of regularity, Mr. Morosky? Are there any other folks within that list that would like to withdraw their name? So we have 3 tonight. Mr. Craig?
Ms. Bolton, I will, or President Bolton, I will remove my name as well.
I appreciate the title very much, but you know, I taught high school for 36 years, so I answer to almost anything. So that's okay. So you are withdrawing, which then gives us the policy committee, Lindy and Mapp and Morosky. And it was the view of the chair. While I cannot vote, I want to say, as a person that often took policy assignment as punishment, we've had a great chair for the last several years in policy, and I hope that the wisdom of the new committee is that they will select the experienced chair for that committee. Then we have Health and Safety Committee. We have 3. In that, we have, I believe now, Mapp, Weinberg, Moffitt, and our member Mapp not only is now taking over the Hughes Big Red seat on the board, which I think, as an Aiken graduate, I think people need to investigate that scandal. But also a person with great experience regarding mental health, and it would be great to have those 3 folks. So we have our committees. Thank you very much. Going to appointments, we have 1 signed up for, a very important one, the Cincinnati Recreation Commission, and I would suggest that should be member Moffitt, who has decided that. I would also say that that we have the kind of an issue about the liaison with our colleagues on the Cincinnati City Council. I would suggest that kind of because of that recreation piece and also the work that the member Moffitt's done, I think unless there's a concern, I would suggest that member Moffitt be also the City Council joint meeting liaison person. We then have a listing of OSBA members, and we have an interest by 2 people regarding Board of Trustee for Southwest Ohio Regional Executive Committee, and we have both Craig and Moffitt interested. Do either of you want to withdraw, or both of you want to serve an alternative, alternates, or shall I flip a coin? What would you suggest?
Well, I'm interested in that position because I've been doing some work already with OSBA with regard to the Diversity and Equity Committee, which was my appointment last year, and it's a 3-year term. I was also doing some work with regard to the student achievement, although I'm not exactly sure, and our admin Phyllis is looking into whether or not that's the official SALT committee, or if that is just some work that I was doing with OSBA already. And then, so I'm very, very interested in maintaining that relationship. I've got those relationships already established. I have already also submitted my form to OSBA that was due October 31st for some other positions there. So I would love to continue to increase that capacity as Board of Trustees if possible.
Well, former Vice President Craig, looking down the list and knowing you are our representative and I believe a member of the Board of Trustees for the Great City School folks, I would suggest that for the trusteeship here, and obviously people can vote this up or vote this down, I would suggest that Member Moffitt be the Board of Trustees Southwest representative. And then you, for sure, as you have signed up and already been, I would say, recruited because of your leadership for the Great City Schools organization, if that works for you.
I will do the will of the board.
Thank you very much. And then the next one is the Diversity and Equity Committee, again, OSBA. That's verifying the appointment. And then the next one, that would be Member Moffitt. Then we have Mr. Morosky volunteering to be the legislative liaison. I'll withdraw my name from the Urban Network, although I'm proud to say I was part of the beginning of it. And anyone must attend. As a matter of fact, I would encourage Member Mapp, when it's available, for a ride up to Columbus to meet some of the folks in the Urban Network. It said in the state of Ohio, some people think there's only 8 urban districts. And really, out of the 600 and some, there frankly are, when you look at smaller districts and you look at the enrollment and the challenges that they face, the Urban Network has kind of put together about 110 school districts that somehow have this effort together and have similar problems. So I'll remove my name there, and Member Moffett, you can be that representative if it works for you. Is that what it is? Yes. And the state report card work group does not really exist any longer. I found that out, I believe 3 days ago. There's an effort to put it together again, but it's no longer in operation, so that's going to be removed. But we'll come back to that at a later time. The Ohio Capital Conference Planning Committee, I've already been appointed to that, so that my name will be there. And then the Student Achievement Liaison, didn't we have a volunteer for that? We have Vice President Weinberg.
Yes.
And then also the OSBA Black Caucus, that's a 2-year term, that is also Vice President Weinberg, correct?
That is correct.
And then the Ohio, what a surprise, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, when Cincinnati appoints somebody, we appoint an Olympic star gold medalist. Now, I mean, I know we're the big dog, but boy, on that committee, we really are.
Absolutely.
It's the spirit. So I appreciate you being willing to serve there. And then we go to the activities beyond the classroom. That's 2. I would like to remain on that. I'm very devoted to it from its very beginning. And many things have come to great fruition from that group. Member Moffett, are you willing to continue or keep your name there? Okay, and then business advisory. I would be withdrawing from that. And Mr. Craig, will you be our person?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. Oh, ABC?
Yes. I would like to add my name to ABC and
Super.
switch out with.
Okay,
Board Member
excellent.
Moffett.
Well, again, I see I got a gold medalist there too, I'll tell you. Thank you very much, Weinberg. Excellent. And thank you, Member Moffett. And we're holding on the advisory group. Oh, yes, we will get there. We will get there. We just want to stay with the agenda, but yes, absolutely. Thanks for the reminder. I appreciate it. And then Great City Schools, we have Mr. Craig. And then the Federal Legislative Advisory Group, I've been appointed to that, representing the 1st Congressional District, and would like to try to keep that because Cincinnati Public is not necessarily always the district that is selected in that capacity. And then also the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy for School Funding, at least temporarily. I'd like to remain. That's the steering committee that meets monthly in Columbus regarding the lawsuit that we are engaged in regarding the universal voucher system. And I think the board has appointed me to that several months ago, and it'll probably be up towards the end of the school year again for appointment and be listing for that. Does anybody see any corrections, additions, or changes? Has board staff been able to kind of keep the list going? And that list then is one that the chair would like to submit for an up or down vote. And if it pleases the board, I think we are able to do that with a roll call, not a roll call, but with a voice vote, if that suits you. Any last minute conversations, discussions, admonitions? With that then, Mr. Assistant Treasurer, would you please call for a voice vote or do you have like a meter that is a sound meter? No?
No, let's try
Okay.
it. Let's try.
All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
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 The work of this effort is done. And before we pass into the resolution that comes next and last, that board staff wants us to make sure that we do, I've been reminded properly so, and I was saving it a little bit and probably slipped my mind. We usually, in the past, have had our new members present their views and values to us and share with the public from which they come. And where they want to go. Member Mapp.
Well, thank you, President Bolton. I just want to begin with remarks saying thank you to everyone, all of the voters of Cincinnati who elected me to this position. I am humble and gracious to serve as a board member of Cincinnati Public Schools. This has truly been an honor, and it is truly a journey. And one thing that I recognize is that with great influence comes great responsibility. So I really uphold what I have committed and the oath that I have taken, and I hold it in very high regard. So I really just want to thank everyone that has been in support of this journey for me. Thank you to all of the board members. Thank you to Superintendent Wright, to Treasurer Wagner, to the district council, to everyone who has just really been a support. And so I'm so thankful, and I'm again humbled to be in this position. I look forward to serving on the committees, focusing on just that holistic approach to ensure the wellness of our students as well as our staff. And also with the assignments, I really look forward to just being present and absorbing as much information as I can so that I am in a position to serve and honor the voices of our community. Thank you.
One member makes a whole new board, and it's very exciting for us to have that opportunity. I'm now on the agenda prepared to ask the Vice President to make a motion regarding the resolution that is before you. Again, perfunctory, but absolutely required by law that we pass it, so I hope nobody has any problems with it. Vice President Weinberg, would you please introduce the resolution?
Yes, the resolution to approve the 2024 organizational meeting business items. Would you like me to read the whole thing?
Please do.
All right. Whereas the Cincinnati Public Schools Board of Education Bylaws 0151 organizational meeting requires that the Board of Education organize annually at a meeting held during the first 15 days of January. And whereas Bylaw 0151.1 motions organization meeting requires certain business items must be performed at the organizational meeting. And now therefore be it resolved that the 2024 Board of Education meeting schedule be reaffirmed, and be it further resolved that a fee will not be charged to individuals requesting paper copies of the scheduled meetings, agendas, or notice of individual meetings. And be it further resolved that the current existing Cincinnati Public Schools Board of Education bylaws and policies for its own operation and the operation of the school system be reaffirmed. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education acknowledges the approved memberships in the professional organizations of the Ohio School Boards Association, the Ohio School Board Association Legal Assistance Fund, and the Council of Great City Schools. And be it finally resolved, as required by Ohio Revised Code 3315.15, the BOE reaffirms the service fund allocation of $25,000. I submit this resolution as written and in hopes of approval.
Thank you, Vice President Weinberg. Is there a second for the resolution?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. Any discussion for this resolution? Seeing none, Mr. Guston, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffat,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. Looking at our agenda, I believe that we have completed the business for the night, but the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. If I hear one and a second, and we do by voice vote, we will adjourn before we have our next meeting immediately. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Second? Thank you very much. Any discussion? No. Voice vote in favor? Chair says yes, and we all have to agree. All right. Done. Thank you all very much for being here for the organizational meeting. As we continue our evening, I'd like to call to order the regular business meeting of our January 8th, 2024 of the Cincinnati School Board. And I would appreciate, as would everyone silencing their cell phones and other electronic devices and giving the proper attention to those that are presenting and speaking tonight. We already have in place a treasurer pro tem in the absence of our treasurer, and our treasurer pro tem is Member Craig. I appreciate his service. And as we have the call to order, we like to continue a tradition that President Lindy did, which is reminding everyone that we are publishing and referencing our goals and guardrails and regarding our work as we see in this coming year. And at the conclusion of the goals and guardrails reference, I'll turn it over to the superintendent for an update. Superintendent, do you have an update for us?
Thank you, President Bolton. Very, very quick update. It's just a reminder, actually, that we have our last two budget roundtable sessions coming up this week, January the 10th, as well as January the 11th. So the 10th session is at Gamble Montessori Elementary, starting at 5:30. And the session on the 11th is actually here at the Ed Center that starts at 11:30. So it gives us a couple of more opportunities for in-person sessions. We have our next town hall meeting, superintendent town hall meeting. Our Be Present town hall is on January the 11th at 5:30 at Kilgore. And one of the other areas that I really do want to call our attention to is our biliteracy nights at all of our world language schools begin on January the 17th. So I do invite you to please review our website for all of the activities and events that we have that are on the horizon as we launch our new part of the school year. And that's all the updates at this time.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Wright. And
Ms. Bolton. Sorry. We normally read the thing at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Instructions are normally read at the beginning of the meeting.
yeah, it's right here.
I think, Rob, were you describing how to indicate that you would like to be a speaker online?
And,
Got it.
And I believe that you're doing that, right, Rob? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Wright. And we're going to start regarding the hearing of the public. And Mr. Wilson, would you do the do?
I have one question, Ms. Bolton, on the
Sure.
superintendent's update. Can board members ask a follow-up question to anything that the superintendent
absolutely.
mentioned? Superintendent, I just want to appreciate the update on the budget roundtables. And if you don't know the numbers, it's okay. But I wanted to just ask, at this point in the year, about how many roundtables have taken place?
Well, I want to give
Ballpark.
the exact numbers. So we started in November. We've had about 2 or 3 a week since that time. By the time we round out, it will be somewhere between 12 and 15.
12 and 15?
Right. We've had, and inclusive in that is also, my team can probably tell me in just a minute exactly how many
The
we've had.
ballpark is great.
Inclusive in that, we've also have that's online right now. We have one that we recorded virtually so that all of the information is online and active right now so that anyone can access it. So far in terms of participants, we've had a little in person, we've had a little over 300 people that have shown up to the budget roundtables.
That's great. That was actually my next question. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
And to follow up on that, if I might, encourage board members to review the nearly, 40 slide of the roundtable presentations that have been presented, and because it would be the beginning of whatever talking points and decision references and points that we might make. So encourage board members to do that. Tonight, what we're going to do, change a little bit regarding hearing of the public for those folks that will be speaking here. The Vice President is going to be conducting the hearing of the public, and the tech folks, Mr. Wilson is going to kind of give an idea as those people that want to participate virtually, how they might do that. And we're going to continue where we were before and giving 2 minutes of an opportunity to speak. And the board can later on this month decide if we want to continue the 2 minutes or make a change from what we've been doing for whatever reason or purpose. We have a range, Joe, but the board can decide whether to continue the 2 minutes or the 3 minutes. So I appreciate the vice president from moving on, doing the hearing of the public. And now if Rob, you'll do the do about how people might be able to participate in the virtual aspect of this communication.
Good evening. If you'd like to speak during the speaking of the public, please click the hand icon now. The feature will remain open for requests for the next 15 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation to the district and your school community, your topic, and your contact information. If you would like a direct response to any question you might have. Thank you.
And with 2 minutes to speak, keep in mind that when the buzzer goes off, your 2 minutes are up, and we will have the vice president be able to tell you thank you very much, and please appreciate you kind of closing off. But right now, we will turn over to the vice president. So we have our in-person folks here first, and then we will go to our virtual folks. Rob, how many folks do we have virtually tonight? Just one? I hope they'll be kind enough to wait for us.
Thank you. First up, we have Angie Wilson. If you could come down to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Angie Wilson, parent at Spencer Center for Gifted and Exceptional Student and PTSO president. I'm here to give you useful information as you make your decisions regarding the role of resource coordinator at Spencer. As a smaller school, we do not qualify for Title I funding and are constantly striving to fund the typical resources a school needs. Our resource coordinator works directly with teachers to assist with their requirements to enrich our students, such as tower gardens, classroom supplies, tutors, partnerships, and the things that serve our students. She works closely with the PTSO to arrange for volunteers, funding for things such as building beautification, events, and anytime there is a need, people go to her, and she simply makes it happen. Many, many things would not happen if it wasn't for our resource coordinator. Approximately 40% of students participate in the free lunch program at our school. The resource coordinator has applied for and arranges after-school snacks for 80+ students every single day. She took it upon herself to write, apply for, and received a grant for $10,000 to help fund those snacks, as well as purchase much-needed tables for our courtyard and to replace broken umbrellas, and including supplies for our classrooms. She organizes and promotes most of our students' school clubs at Spencer Center. Our school clubs have been such an important part of our community, and they really didn't exist much before she got there. She has organized club fairs so that students can have exposure to their options, and it has fostered involvement with our students at our school. She also stays after school after those clubs to make sure every student gets home safely. She handles school recruitment, and our ambassador program, which consists of 63 students, have been chosen to represent Spencer Center. She arranges open houses for the public, building tours for prospective families, arranges Spencer to attend local festivals and community events. She educates the public about our school. Enrollment has gone up 13% at our school, and I attribute that to her efforts. My student joined Spencer Center 3 years ago, and it was before we had a resource coordinator. I've seen what a difference it has made to have her there. Wow, what a difference. I just can't say enough about the impact she's had at Spencer Center. And so I thank you for allowing me to share these important points, and please protect her role going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Rick Guerin. Rick, if you can come on down.
Good evening. I am Rick Arine. I am the business manager for Operating Engineers. I'm also the representative for Stationary Engineer JAC of Cincinnati Apprenticeship Program. We have it in our collective bargaining agreement between us that the board and Local 20 will meet to discuss the apprenticeship program feasibility. I would just ask that we make sure that happens. It's been in there quite a while. We've never had those discussions, and I would just appreciate if we could have those discussions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Sally Grimes.
Good evening. My name is Sally Grimes, and I am the Executive Director of Activities Beyond the Classroom, better known as ABC. ABC is a standalone 501c3 nonprofit that for 20 years has supported extracurricular programs for CPS students through fundraising, citywide partnerships, and contracts with the district. I'm here tonight with a very exciting invitation for all of you CPS board members, administration, guests, and anybody at home who's listening in tonight. Grab a pen and mark your calendar for the 4th CPS International Jazz Festival, 7 p.m. on Saturday, March 9th at the Procter & Gamble Hall at the Aronoff Center for the Arts. The CPS International Jazz Festival, hosted by ABC, features 145 CPS students in grades 4th through 12th from 24 schools. These remarkable musicians rehearse once per week, year-round, through the CPS Jazz Academy to prepare for this event. To carry the message of music as an international language, we're excited to welcome all the way from Japan, world-renowned jazz violinist Tomoku Omura. Ms. Omura was named the #1 rising jazz violin star by Downbeat magazine and currently performs all over the world. She will be joining our children on stage at the event. The Jazz Fest is part of a larger partnership between ABC and CPS that focuses on delivering as many arts programs as possible to CPS students. Annually, ABC supports arts education for 1,500 students via the year-round Jazz Academy, after-school arts programs in 13 schools, daytime music and arts enrichment for the entire district, plus a variety of arts-focused events throughout the school year. In order to ensure equitable access to the event, the CPS International Jazz Festival is completely free, both for the children participating and for all of the guests, all of you who will be there to cheer them on. Please, again, grab a pen, mark your calendar, March 9th.
Thank you so
I hope
much.
to see you there.
And I think before we go to our last speaker, I think we have one speaker online. Is that correct?
That is actually, we now have 3 speakers online if they all accept the invite. We are going to start with Kendra Phelps, DFT.
Thank you.
Kendra, go ahead.
Congratulations, President Bolton and Vice President Weinberg. My name is Kendra Phelps. I am a CPS former student, CPS parent, CPS teacher, and teacher leader with CFT. I am contacting you regarding the investment that the district has made in the Ask CPS chatbot. I personally did not find it helpful when I used it and wanted to share my experience. I text the chatbot to let them know that my son's Metro bus route changed without any notice and that the new route has not been coming according to the schedule. Sometimes it's late, sometimes it doesn't come at all, and ask what could be done to address it. The chatbot asked for my son's student's school. I had provided the school, and then the chatbot told me to contact the school. So I text back, what can the school do? Doesn't CPS have a transportation department that communicates with Metro? The chatbot said, thank you for confirming this info. Could you please provide your student's name and grade? I did that, a little leery though, wondering who I'm talking to and who I'm giving my son's information about my son to. It said, thank you for verifying this information. We've sent your request. If you don't hear back in 48 hours, let us know. Then I got a text back saying, contact CPS Access Pupil Transportation at that number. I called Pupil Transportation, and they basically said, we don't work with Metro in regards to the schedules and things like that. So you have to call Metro. I'm just a little disappointed. I think, one, it's a travesty if CPS's transportation department is not communicating with Metro, because it definitely impacts student attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ashley Garland. Ashley, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry if you guys can see me. I don't know if you can. How's everyone? Happy New Year. John P. Parker just wanted to invite you all to one of our events that's coming up. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is community engagement, servicing our family and communities around us, especially with early literacy initiatives. So we're really excited. January 17th from 4 to 6 p.m. We are having a special event featuring guest author and founder actress Karen Parsons. You may know her as Hillary Banks from the beloved show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She's doing incredible things for early literacy, and this will be in representation with Dr. David Childs from UK. So we're focusing on the importance of representation in children's literacy. This is going to be held at Artsville on Wednesday, January 17th from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a wonderful time to come and also see a lot of our school partners, community partners, meet our families, and collaborate and learn more about the importance of representation in children's literacy. So we hope to see you guys there, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you so much. As our last speaker, we have CFT President Julie Sellers, in which she will be coming to the microphone, and we have 2 more, so we have 4. I'm sorry, we'll take that back.
Somehow reproduced.
Yes, originally we only had 1, but that is okay. We will take the next 2 online callers.
Elizabeth is next. Elizabeth, you can go ahead. Elizabeth, please, Elizabeth Simpson, please unmute your mic and camera. Thank you. Elizabeth seems to be having some technical issues. We're going to go to Stephanie Marston. Stephanie, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Marston. I am a parent of a kindergartner at Parker Woods Montessori and a 3rd grader at Spencer Center. I am just coming to the board today grateful for all the work that you're doing. I know that there are very difficult decisions ahead in terms of budgeting, and I just wanted to echo what Angie said earlier about the importance of school resource coordinators and how they build such community within our schools by giving students opportunities beyond the classroom and the chance to connect with one another outside of a traditional classroom. So I wanted to echo the support for that and also the support for reading specialists who I think make a tremendous difference. These professionals work incredibly hard and are such a critical part of getting the students the fundamental skills that they need to be able to succeed in the future. So I just wanted to echo the support for school resource coordinators and for reading specialists when you are making budget considerations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rob, is there anyone else?
There is not. Thank you.
Okay. We now have CFT President Julie Sellers. She will come to the microphone, and Julie, you will have a little bit, obviously more than 2 minutes of time to speak.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to reiterate that ABC, with how they partner with CPS for the CPS International Jazz Festival, is probably one of the best events you will attend for the year, and everybody should go to that. I know that I went in the past and it was fantastic. But this evening, I just wanted to say to the board, I think you're going to have to revisit your policy on remote work. You're going to be voting on the hiring of 2 new employees who will be working remotely from Florida 100% of the time. I'm sure that the taxpayers in this district would not approve hiring people who never contribute to our local economy. They are not paying property taxes, purchasing groceries, going to restaurants, buying gas, or other life necessities that are drivers in our local economy. There is a district policy, and I believe that it does need to have some refinement and how this is going to work. My main question is, why would we hire someone to work from Florida? Don't we have qualified people in this area? I just don't understand how, for some reason, we don't have the people in locally. All that I know is that it seems counterproductive to have employees who will never step foot into this building or this district. You have the right to cancel, based on your policy, the remote work authorization at any time. Employees should live and contribute to our local economy. And then secondly, CFT members are extremely concerned that schools do not have their staffing sheets or budgets. This is a major concern, and it's how will the schools move forward without their staffing sheets? Schools do not know what staffing positions they will have for next school year, and this is causing anxiety because all of the talk about filling the gap and cutting dollars, people are wondering what positions are going to be cut and how will the schools be impacted. Once again, we are in a delayed situation, and schools can't move forward without the documents necessary to know what their staffing will be next year and for employees to be able to make plans accordingly. The delay will cause a delay in hiring, which could cause us to lose new hires. And this anxiety is with many of our current employees and school leadership. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, we have the conclusion of hearing the public, and we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the committee reports. We have a voice vote that's going to be needed for the approval of minutes, and I'm going to read the minutes, and then we'll be calling on a voice vote. And the special meeting, December 4th, 2023, business meeting, December 4th, 2023, special public meeting, December 5th, special meeting, December 11th, and the meeting also December 11th, 2023. Do I have approval? A voice vote is needed. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Voice vote. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll move on, and now we'll have the actual board committee reports, and we'll start, if we can, with Member Weinberg. I think you have a committee report.
Yes, I do. Thank you. The Health and Safety Committee, we met on December the 11th, 2023 at 3 p.m. The attendees for this particular meeting consisted of, obviously, the chairperson was myself. Committee members, Carolyn Jones and Mike Morosky was absent, but we missed him greatly. The administration staff there was Chief of Staff Derek Little, and our community member who presented from MindPeace was the Director, Susan Shelton. So I opened the meeting up by thanking my committee members, Carolyn Jones and Mike Morosky, for their hard work and their dedication to the committee for the year. I did a special thank you to Ms. Jones with a presentation of flowers as a token for thanking Ms. Jones. Not only was that her last committee meeting, but her last year on the Cincinnati Public School Board of Education. We then further moved into the mental health update given by MindPeace. Susan Shelton, the director of MindPeace, informed the committee about their following mission. And their mission for MindPeace is that MindPeace ensures that every child and adolescent has access to an effective system of mental health and wellness. Ms. Shelton then updated the committee on the following variables that were contained in her presentation that included ways that MindPeace assists CPS. She discussed the goal of MindPeace is that students and their families who need and want the service have access to mental health treatment, therapy, case management, and medication management, all, of course, with the guardian consent. She also discussed about the CPS-led school-based mental health partners. We have Beach Acres Parent Center, Best Point, Central Clinic Behavioral Health, Child Focus, Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, the Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health Services, Lighthouse Youth and Family Services, Poppy's Therapeutic Corner, Talbot House, Tri-Health, the UMAD AOP, which stands for the Urban Minority Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Outreach Program. We were informed through the committee, she also informed the committee about last year's services and how there was an increase in referrals. 71% of CPS students were referred to mental health services. There was a 50% was the national benchmark, and the benchmark is at 80%. She informed the committee about organizations that are now offering preventive services as well to our students, and we received an update on why students did not receive services. The largest barrier was known to be parent engagement. Parents were declining, and there was a workforce shortage. She also ended the presentation giving an update to the committee on supports that are available for gun violence as well. We then moved over and we received an update about menstrual health and feminine products from Dr. Derek Little, Chief of Staff. He updated the committee on the following information regarding the installation of dispensers for menstrual health products. There are 76 dispensers that have been installed throughout the district, as well as 130,000 pieces of product. The product was purchased with a reimbursable grant that was provided by the state of Ohio, and it will cost approximately $60,000 a year to keep the product in stock. And these dollars will also be able to allow for 3 refills a year at each of these schools. Dr. Little also reported that the district's partner, Girls Health Period, was able to sustain their supply of products as well by providing 750 pieces a year to elementary schools and about 1,500 to high schools. Dr. Little also reported that he has been talking with Girls Health Period about education for not only adult staffs, but also for our students. And I think we then further went on to have a year-end update in which I closed out with some highlights about the committee and the work that we did for the year of 2023. And then we ended out with other business in which we had a discussion that I think came to a couple of board members from community members regarding edibles and just getting some more education about that among students. And we then discussed about for next year, and obviously the committee will get together to figure out who will be the chair for that committee. Hopefully I will be, but we will figure that out. And I submit my minutes for the report.
Appreciate it. The next two that we have, I think I have some responsibility to report as the former chair of finance. The first one is our wonderful community audit committee. They had an extensive discussion regarding the voucher program, which is a scandal waiting to happen regarding accountability of monies, and the audit committee is very much aware of that. The audit committee updates were presented so that we could understand where members have been thinking about certain items that need to be on the agenda. Also, tremendous efforts have been made by the audit folks on staff to create an incredible audit committee dashboard regarding our internal audit functions. And so much of the meeting was actually kind of some PD as to how to use it and how they wanted it to be improved or changed. We also had a larger financial discussion, and we're reminded that indeed we have some appointments coming up to the audit committee that'll be brought to the finance committee for approval, and then we'll come here to the full board for new members for the audit committee, as well as a reminder that we have the mid-year evaluation for our chief audit executive, Lauren Roberts, and a wish at that time that when we get ready for the final evaluation for Ms. Roberts is that the board would in many ways participate in that effort as well. We used to do that and we don't do it any longer, and the audit committee would like to kind of frankly share the positive feelings that they have about Ms. Roberts and the work that she and her team does. So just keep that in mind. You'll get a reminder, but the midterm is up. And then also these new memberships will be coming for approval. And I think some of us might be interested in seeing the dashboard work that's being done by the internal audit folks. And it's pretty remarkable. Might be able to take a lesson as to how we might be able to make our efforts even more efficient, as former Vice President Craig mentioned in his presentation tonight. Well, in the Finance Committee, we spent more than about 40 minutes with a very rather extensive overview of the school-based health centers programs that we have, an emphasis too on the staffing pre-COVID versus now regarding nursing within our schools. And also we're very happy to see Dr. Marilyn Crumpet come to us and suggest some things about staffing that might impact some of our budget decisions in the very near future. We also had an update regarding benefits for our employees, and also a bit of an update as well on the progress that's being made in our benefits department. We had a timeline for our negotiations presented by General Counsel, and we, as we mentioned earlier in the evening, we have all 6 union groups up for their collective bargaining agreements this year. Another monthly financial reports was presented by the Treasurer's Office. And then also the Treasurer's Office very much so wanted us to start thinking, and all board members need to be looking at that, and we'll be able to share how we might revamp the Treasurer's report so that it is more, even more transparent and clearer about what is new, what is a continuing contract, or what have you. So the Treasurer's beginning to kind of think through that, and would like some board participation on what would make it even more user-friendly and more transparent for not only the board members, but also the public. We had an update regarding ad hoc committee work as it pertained particularly to financial issues regarding property and facilities, which does rest within the Finance Committee. We also had an update on our budget roundtables, and indeed the idea that somehow was a rumor circulating about some things were on the table and on that roundtable, and some things are not on that roundtable. And the superintendent assured us that everything is on the table, be it round or square. And so forget that rumor that some things are off. We also had within the finance presentation another look at this possibility of certificates of participation, or COPS money, where we take out basically a loan and we do some of the things that we need for our facilities as we try to figure out how to best use our general fund, certainly, but also anticipate the need for down the road more money, even to begin the regular financial facilities efforts, as well as looking at the ad hoc and also the strategic plan, the need to continue the development of our facilities in order to grow our enrollment. I submit both of those for approval and have the hopes that they will be approved when we do the final vote. And now we'll move on to, I believe, the chair of ad hoc. That's the next one? I think so. Member Moffitt.
So we did have our regularly scheduled last meeting of the ad hoc committee before sunsetting on December the 31st. And what we did is we had always intended to compile the discussion from the board meeting. Member Morosky wasn't there, so he didn't get a chance to give us the full breadth, but we had some partial discussion during our brief presentation. We were interrupted. And so we took some of that feedback, in addition to some of the feedback that board members just individually shared, and had our last meeting on December 28th to further provide some clarity around the 5 recommendations. The recommendations didn't change, but we did offer some clarity. And so, and that was actually because board members had questions. I think board member Lindy even asked what was the cost analysis. So we'd had that question before, so we put some clarity to that. We will talk about it during board matters. I think we're on the agenda to finish, or at least continue the discussion. And I have the clarification that we came up with at that meeting. Those pages for everyone to discuss, but it is submitted here. The same recommendations are the same recommendations that we presented. I'll just go through them a little bit here. I'm going to go through each one and read them, primarily because there's been some confusion. Board members have received some feedback around confusion around what are we talking about in ad hoc. No one's talked about closing any schools at the moment, so we can get that off the table. But I do want to go through the 5 recommendations that we didn't get a chance to state publicly. So the committee met to include the feedback from board members, order and provide clarification and direction within each of the 5 committee recommendations. Again, those were the same recommendations before. Number 1, to redesign a system of schools within 3 geographic corridors aligned to neighborhood boundaries based on capacity, enrollment, and attendance. The corridors would be east, west, and central. And so we wanted to redesign the system of schools. As a reminder, in our vision and mission for the district, it says system of schools. So we are asking that that alignment be in the corridor model using the same verbiage. Number 2, analyze and strengthen program focus to achieve equitable accessibility within each corridor. Again, that would be central, east, and west. Number 3, create improved ease of access that provides transportation within each corridor, resulting in reduced transportation costs across the district. Number 4, establish a system continuum across all corridors that allows for creation of middle schools, grades 6 through 8. And so, again, that no discussion was had on no discussion was had on closing schools. It was to establish a system continuum. And then number 5, reevaluate policies, procedures regarding high schools of choice. So you'll hear a little bit more about that from the feedback that we've gotten under board matters, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss a little more at each meeting. But that is what our December 28th ad hoc meeting consisted of, just continuation and to provide clarity with regard to the feedback that we had received from the board members at the meeting. And I submit this as written in hopes for approval.
Thank you very much, former chair of the ad hoc committee, now sunsetted. Any questions before we move on for a voice vote for these committee? Mr. Lindy.
Thank you, President Bolden. This is for former Chair Moffitt, and I know that we're going to talk more about this during board matters. I just wanted to confirm, when I looked through the report itself, there's no action recommended for the board to approve in the committee report. So that as we vote to approve the committee reports, we're not approving any recommended action at this point, and we have time to talk about it later on tonight during board matters. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. That's
Thank you.
what I hope I said. I hope I said that. Yes.
And that's the belief of the chair as we move ahead, so it'd be great. So we need a voice vote in order to accept all of the committee reports and thank the chairs for their presentations. Do I have a voice vote to accept all of the committee minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, voice vote.
President Bolton, just
Yes.
as a real quick correction on the Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee meeting.
Okay.
It actually says 11 p.m. I don't think we met that long.
I think we did. Where did you go?
I probably left at around 11 a.m., but
Thank you for the correction. I'm glad you caught it. With that correction, do I have approval for these minutes? Yes, voice vote.
Aye.
All in favor? Oh,
Sorry, jumped the gun.
all in favor? Say
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, now we will move on from the committee reports to, if we can turn the page, we are going to move to resolutions. I'm going to need some help, not necessarily anticipating sitting in this seat right now. I don't know that we've assigned all these resolutions for approval or for introduction. So the first resolution I have is the OSBA resolution for board consideration. If you will take out your agenda, you will see the title of each of these resolutions. If you're on that page, I would appreciate somebody raising their hand and being willing to introduce that resolution so we can do this fairly quickly. Mr. Lindy.
Thank you, President Bolden. I'd like to motion under the adoption of the first resolution, which is a resolution to join the Ohio School Board Association, and I present that resolution as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Mr. Guston.
Thank you. Mr. Craig?
yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky? Vice President Weinberg?
Yes.
President Bolden?
Yes. Another resolution, who is willing to introduce this resolution regarding legal assistant group? Member Moffitt.
So I submit a resolution to join the Ohio School Board Association Legal Assistance Fund. I submit it as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Mr. Guston.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky, Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. Is there a resolution regarding appointing a representative to the Ohio School Board Association Board of Trustees? And I believe now we are able to write in a name for that one as well. May I have a motion? Or not?
Read it.
Happy to.
Okay.
Okay, just confirming so that I didn't lose my place here. We're on resolution number 3.
Yes.
So introduce a resolution to appoint a representative to the Ohio School Board Association Board of Trustees. And I present that resolution as written with the name, which was from our earlier discussion,
Member Moffitt.
Member Moffitt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Justin?
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. And on number 4, a resolution approving standing authorizations. Do I have a motion maker?
I have a question, but I'll make a motion to,
Make the motion and then we can have discussion.
I'll make a motion
Is
to,
there a second?
Second.
And now having had a second, what is the discussion?
so
Member Moffitt.
I have a question. Is this is the resolution approving standing authorizations for the superintendent to be able to carry out necessary duties, district duties for calendar year 2024. Is this just a continuation of what we already have? This is not increasing that amount? Or is this just to continue?
It's my belief, Superintendent, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So this, again, another perfunctory issue, and appreciate the question. Any other question or discussion? Mr. Morosky.
Thank you, President Bolton. Just one point of clarity. On the agenda, unless it was corrected, all these resolutions, this one and number 5, state calendar year 2023, but just for the public's edification, the actual resolutions do state 2024.
I love it. Staff? Okay. Appreciate it. All right. Mr. Guston?
Sure. Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes,
Ms. Bolton, can I make a quick interjection?
please.
Any errors with the agenda should be attributed to the former president of the board and not the staff. And I appreciate all of the staff's hard work. Thank you.
That's very generous of you. I'm still holding Phyllis and Pat for responsible for this. But yes, this trying to highlight the work that's actually done in this district is remarkable. So appreciate that, Mr. Lindy. Very nice, very generous. All right, and then the final, or close to the final, we have the same kind of perfunctory resolution regarding providing an opportunity for the treasurer to continue work, whether we are in session or not, or whatever that is. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Member Moffitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Guston?
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. And privilege of the chair, I have a resolution, I believe, about time, yes. Resolution to the advanced payment of taxes, and would appreciate a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there discussion, or does anybody need that explanation from the assistant treasurer? All
Yes,
right.
please. Could you provide an explanation?
Absolutely. Member Mapp would like an explanation of what this particular resolution is about. Mr.
Sure.
Guston.
Sure, my pleasure. What this resolution allows us to do is request basically advances on our tax settlement. So the county property taxes get settled twice a year, but they collect throughout the year. Usually it's delinquencies they collect these times, and basically allows us to request those payments ahead of the twice a year settlement.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. We have a motion and a second, I believe, and we are ready.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes, and Vice President Weinberg, I believe you have a resolution for board consideration.
Yes, for the resolution approving students eligible for subsidy reimbursement in lieu of transportation for the 2023-2024 school year. They submit this as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Any discussion? Mr. Guston.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. Superintendent of Schools and whoever is taking this responsibility, do we have any retirements to announce?
Yes, we do actually have two retirees from civil service. We have Maud Dandridge, Security Assistant from Westwood School, and we also have Terry Smith, Security Assistant from Dater Montessori School. So we would like to thank these two individuals for their years of service and their commitment to this district and to the students, and we wish them all of the best.
Weinberg, appreciate it. And now we need to move on to the superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Lindy. Is there a second? Oh,
Second.
Madam, we have a second, so now we can have discussion. And the superintendent, do you have a comment or presentation?
I actually have a
Something?
correction that we found as a clerical error. I'm sure that this will come up for some questions in a moment, but there is a clerical error in the superintendent recommendations on page 11 under appointments, C, appointments, for the person's last name that starts with CH. They actually duplicated those numbers. It's actually a different position. So thought it might be better to correct it now versus bring it back. So the actual position is Application Support Administrator, CRM, and the salaried amount is $112,575.92.
Thank you. The motion makers and seconder, do you agree to
Friendly
the
amendment.
change? Friendly? Okay, we will accept the changes from the superintendent, and then we have the motion and the second stand, and we have a question during the discussion from Vice President Weinberg. And this is now regarding all aspects of the superintendent's recommendations.
I actually have a quick question regarding what the superintendent just stated. Can you please repeat that? I wanted to make sure I had the correct page here.
There was a clerical error that was done on page 11 under C, appointment. If you notice, there are two names there that are listed under the same position. It's actually two different positions. The second position is the Application Support Administrator, CRM, and the salary is $112,575.92. So it's not the repeat that's listed on this particular rec.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's just me, but I don't see where that is. And I'm on page 13, so I think the pages are off a little bit.
Page 11.
Oh, I see,
under
I
C,
see. Okay,
appointment.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right, are there other questions or items regarding the superintendent's recommendation? We are in discussion for the recommendations.
President
Member
Bolton,
Moffett?
On these ITM instructional designers, are those the remote positions from the people in Florida that are being presented?
They are. I did forward back to the board today as a follow-up to the question that you sent earlier about those two positions, but those are the positions that we're referring to.
Okay, I think just so that the public understands, these are contracted positions. They would be board employees or they're contractors?
So for overall clarification, these positions, actually, these two specific positions have been working under a contract for a contractor for the district since 2021. As we were going through the budget review this past year, we realized that we could save funding by having those positions come in-house versus having them work as contractors. At that time, we then posted the positions, and the individuals that ended up applying for the positions happened to be the same individuals that applied for the positions and were selected, happened to be the same individuals that were doing the contract previously that were doing the work previously as contractors. So these individuals were here since 2021. They were from Florida since 2021. They were working for the companies that I sent to you earlier at that time. So the CRM was contracted with us through Learn 21, and the instructional designer was contracted with us through Cincinnati Bell, and they both have BCI and FBI background checks.
Okay. Okay, I was just looking for that email. I don't have that email, but I just wanted to be
It came to you
clarified.
at 428.
I just want to be clear to the public that these are not, we're asking for $10,000 for remote positions for people that are not here, and those are the positions specifically.
Right.
I just wanted
So
to
for these specific positions, as shared earlier, the district does have a policy around remote work. If the board chooses to take that policy up at some other time and change what the requirements are, currently we have at least one of our staff members that comes to the office maybe once a month, maybe once every other as needed, that does not live in the state. So if there is consideration for something that needs to be done differently, by all means, we'll operate within the confines of the board. I will share that these particular positions, though, both of them are ITM positions, and they are, if I can say, unicorn type positions. They're very difficult positions to come by in terms of overall salary, in terms of, and finding individuals in the city, not just in the state, but in the city. For one of the positions, we didn't have anyone that applied at all that was qualified for the position. The second one that did apply for the position, it was outside of the range of what we could pay, because these positions generally carry a much larger salary.
I just wanted it to be clarified that these are remote. They're not expected to come into the district at all. This is just strictly remote, correct?
They are following the district's currently remote policy.
So that's a no. They're not coming into the district.
They're following the district's current remote policy.
Okay, I just wanted it to be clarified. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? I have a couple, but other questions or comments or concerns or any further information that is needed? The chair has taken the opportunity to pass down left and right the board policy regarding remote work. That's in the 3,000s and does represent, as both the superintendent has said, and we've all said, several months of work. Actually, even to be totally transparent, also represented differing views from our superintendent and our treasurer as this policy was put together for various reasons. So it was a tremendous effort. I think my question, as a very strong supporter of the opportunity for remote work when possible, I would need assurance, and I don't know that I have it yet, that not about these individuals necessarily, but obviously I would need assurance that the policy itself, the 3133, is actually being met. I don't believe necessarily that it's not, but it would seem to me that I'm not sure that we addressed necessarily this opportunity. I think the superintendent and treasurer both said this is what would evolve eventually, but I think we need to be very clear that indeed in the current policy, the specifics of this policy are being carried out by these two individuals. situations. And maybe I need assurance before I vote yes for it regarding whether or not it meets all of the criteria for the policy. I'm not that interested in sending this policy back to policy, but we can do that in the assignment phase at the end of the meeting. But right now I need assurance because I did review this policy and I'm not altogether sure that what we're doing tonight necessarily meets the aspects of this policy, and would prefer that we not necessarily move ahead, although I think it's more than justifiable. And again, as a supporter of remote, I think it's reasonable to do it, but I don't know that it is within the context of this policy. Madam Superintendent?
Sure, thank you, President Bolton. So a couple of things in terms of the request initially. If we recall, I think I was one of the first to make the request that we have an actual policy because we did not have an active policy in the district. We had a practice that was not consistent. And so from there was a lot of work that happened around that. The policy as it states does not put a stipulation on where a person lives. So we don't have something that's written in the policy that says it cannot be a person that is out of state or in the tri-state area, as I think I actually heard someone reference earlier. We don't have anything that says that. From the actual policy, the responsibility of the administrative staff was to write the administrative guidelines that go along with it, which essentially allows for administrative work for individuals potentially that are not forward-facing with students. I don't know that we would be making this recommendation at all if it were not for the uniqueness of these particular positions, because they don't have any interaction, any interface at all with students. It is all technology-based. So when we look at the actual policy and what it called for us to do, and then we look at the administrative guidelines that says the supervisor can approve remote work for the staff members, it does meet those particular criteria. And the administrative guidelines were shared with the board January of last year, but I can re-forward them as well.
As one board member, I would like to see those guidelines again, and I appreciate what you're saying, and would want to hold off. And this is a caveat, and it won't take long to say this. It's very hard for us to say yes to this when, at least whether it's true or not, we keep hearing that people that could do remote work have been denied remote work. If we're giving it to somebody that's living in Florida, I think you have the issue there is that I don't know how you start to deny it to those people that would meet the criteria that's set up in the policy. So I think this is going to be the opening of the floodgates if this is approved, and that's why I want to make sure that it is within the policy and within the guidelines, because the appetite for remote is growing. It is not diminishing. And I just have some concerns about this tonight. I'd rather wait to have the assurances that we need about the guidelines. But again, I'm only one member of the committee, and I'm not looking for policy to have to revisit this necessarily. Other comments from the board or the superintendent?
So the only thing that I will say, that I'll answer any other questions that there are for me. I do want to make sure that I do a reminder or another disclaimer that these individuals have worked for the district as contractors in Florida since 2021. As I understand from staff, one was hired early January, I believe it was, in 2021. We can verify the dates. And the other was in March of 2021. At that time, they were hired under a contract in Florida. So when we were going through the budget this year, we found ways that we could begin to minimize some of the cost, that it gave us an amount of enough for another salary for a different position. So we offered the opportunity to bring that position in-house. But these individuals have worked for our district under contractors since 2021. So I think that if we're also going to address that, as we think about the specifics of how we look at the policy, we also have to address how we look at that with our contractors. Because these individuals received a contract One of them was from Cincinnati Bell. One of them was from Learn 21. Cincinnati Bell is Cincinnati housed, but that person that did the contract lived in Florida. So I just want to make sure that we reiterate that these aren't new individuals. The benefit to us at this point is continuity of services. We did not find individuals that were qualified here, but I am one of the ones that shared, when we do the policy, we know what is going to happen from there. If it were not for the uniqueness of these roles, this would not be a recommendation that I would be making to the board at this time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions before we move on for the approval of, or another issue to be raised regarding superintendent's recommendations? All right.
I just have a
Yes.
comment. So
Member Mapp.
with me being fairly new, my question is there a way for us to approve your recommendation as written with the exception of this particular area? Just so for me, I can have an opportunity to review the policy as well as just get more information about these particular individuals that are currently contracted.
And that would be a question to the chair rather than necessarily the superintendent. But yes, one of the practices that we have is to be able to pass the whole thing with making an exception. And that would be perfectly all right as long as you cite the specific page and Roman numeral or whatever, that would be fine.
Okay.
If that's what you choose to do. Member Moffitt.
I just wanted to clarify, I have concerns about anyone that is working remotely and the security of our data for our students, staff, and families. So when we're talking about an IT position, I'm very concerned about what are they processing, what is their role with regard to security, with regard to data. So I'm going to ask that question particularly in light of the fact that we have had some breach scares that were by contractors and they were out of state. And I think it behooves us, whether that was, they've always been here since 2021 or, yesterday, it behooves us to be fiscally responsible to make sure that our systems are secure. When I just see ITM instructional designer, I don't know what that is. And that is a heightened awareness for me to make sure that we are having some security, particularly around that area. So I ask those questions. I do know that the treasurer's office, because I did ask a clarifying question, which is different for people that need to know that the treasurer's office is separate from the superintendent's office and one of the board's direct reports. That position is different in that the material, the data that they handle, and that person is responsible, was hired that way and is responsible for coming into the district on a regular basis. And that's why I asked the question, would they be coming in? Do we have any eyes on that person? How are they working remotely? And I do have some concerns that maybe the policy committee does need to revisit it, particularly since this is now an area that administration is using, clearly our treasurer's office is using, that we are able to be consistent for our current staff so that it's not just ambiguous, it's not just up for debate. If there are some guidelines around what our intended purpose of that remote work policy was for. I didn't have an intended purpose for it to be someone outside of the tri-state area that couldn't get here quickly, but that's just me. I do think in light of the fact that we have had some financial breaches, we need to exercise due diligence and ensure that our data is safe for our students and our families. So that's why I'm asking the question, and I'm happy to approve it without those particular positions.
Any response? Question, Mr. Lindy.
Well, I just wanted to thank the administration for the context on the past history with these roles. I was fascinated to learn that they predate even your time as superintendent here in CPS. I didn't know where Learn 21 was located, but I learned in looking it up, it's in Blue Ash, a couple miles up the road. So folks who came to us through Learn 21 and through Cincinnati Bell, certainly seems, fine for my part. I think bigger issue for me is, I think trying to operate at this level is too in the weeds from my perspective in terms of management decision versus board work. So I'm excited to vote in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. I would only say as a second to that, I agree that this is the new world we're living in, where you have generations, if you will, of who's employed by whom as we contract out. But I would say this may be in the weeds, but this is also about a relatively new policy that we have to make sure is properly implemented, and I know the superintendent's trying to do that. So on this particular case, since it's a policy issue, I think it's a reasonable thing to have a discussion, and it's only the early wave of the future. So it's reasonable to talk. Vice President Weinberg.
I do just have a question. Superintendent, can you possibly further explain what is it that they're actually doing? What is the role? I am curious.
Sure, I will read the email that I sent to the board at 4:28 today. We probably didn't read it because we were taking pictures. So I will read it to the board at this time. I got the question this morning and I was able to respond before the board meeting. Prior to hiring these positions, the contractors are working for different companies. The application administrator, CRM, was contracted to us through Learn 21, and the instructional designer was through Cincinnati Bell Technology Services. They will both have BCI and FBI background checks maintained as employees. To detail the specific work of each position, the Salesforce's CRM engineer is a high-level technical resource that is responsible for building, coding, and integration of Salesforce and customer relations management platforms. The platform is in use and has been built upon his work as a contractor to support multiple departments for their ticketing and issue management workflows. The position is rarely customer-facing and works primarily with technical teams directly to develop the requirements for department customizations and then codes those capabilities into the system for use. The skill set is in high demand nationally and typically draws a salary well beyond the highest level the district can offer, i.e. $150,000 or higher. He has worked in this role under contract for multiple years for CPS and has shown his investment in the district and his trustworthiness for access to our systems and data. However, the role does not include access to financial data. There was only one local qualified candidate, but the required salary exceeded the highest CPS salary scale. So that's for the first one. The second one, the instructional designer, is a technical content developer. This role is responsible for taking the technology platforms in use at the district and creating custom district-specific instructions, training, videos, and content that will be used by IT, the learning technology team, family technology support services, and numerous district PD providers with our staff, students, and families. It does not require access to any personally identifying or financial data. It is also a highly sought after skill set in the market that is typically a flexible remote position within the industry to be competitive. There were no qualified applicants with competitive salary requirements for our area. As both of these candidates began during the 2021 school year, we did not anticipate they would apply and be recommended for the position.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this particular topic? I want to pay particular attention to the request by our new member, MAP, if that's influencing me on moving ahead. If there's no other questions about this particular item or other items in the recommendations, any other comments by the treasurer? Folks too, because I know it pertains to them as well, this remote piece, but proceeding, I would appreciate if we would either have a call for a vote or the superintendent would suggest a delay on this one issue or what have you. I don't know what you feel comfortable doing, Madam Superintendent.
What I feel comfortable with is we actually made the request in terms of budget for a time certain. This is a role that we have to have with the work that we're doing in the district. And we followed the guidelines, we followed the expectations, we followed what's been given to us. So it is not my request at this time to remove the recommendation. However, I do understand if the board, if it's the will of the board for us to go another direction, then we will have to address that. But it will cost us because we built this around a certain time and a certain time period so that we could effectuate the savings that we were looking for.
Thank you, and I think that's important to note. Member Mapp? Your view?
Superintendent Wright, could you share some of those examples of how it would cost us, or those negative, I guess, like costs?
Sure. So specifically, these two positions, as we were going through the budget and looking for the monies that we were looking to save, we could actualize about $100,000 cost savings by taking these positions from contracted positions doing the same work, bringing them in-house. you don't actualize that savings unless you start at a certain time with that particular position. So you don't get the savings if you have to continue to use the role as a contractor. So it's taken us this amount of time to get to the point where we are. If we don't move forward with the positions, then the savings that we were looking to get from bringing the positions in-house, we don't get that savings.
Thank you for that clarification.
Welcome.
Madam Superintendent, if I could add real quickly before I go to the Vice President, I will also say that almost 2 years ago, it was brought to our attention on this board that the administration was paying particular attention to whether or not outsourcing or insourcing thematically was a good idea financially, and that all of those things needed to be reviewed. And indeed, this would be an example of, interestingly enough, coming in as employees saves money versus the outsourcing, which then also makes it more important that contract review become intensified, I think, for all of us in these budget times. Vice President Weinberg.
I no longer have a comment. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm prepared, based upon what the superintendent suggested, to call for a vote. If everybody has, unless anybody has any other issues with the recommendations, Mr. Guston.
All right, Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Same.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes, except for C, part 1.
all right, Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. And now I'll take a motion and a second regarding the report by the treasurer.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President. Any questions, comments, or discussions now that we have a motion and a second for the treasurer's report? Mr. Morosky, you good? Everybody? All right. Mr. Guston.
All right, Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes, and now we move to the next part of our agenda, which is listed here as part 2, and it is board matters. For the sake of the chair, before we start the one item that is in board matters, do I anticipate any lengthy inquiries or updates tonight? Good. For tonight, because we're going to be meeting about 8 times this month, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of time, and I would anticipate some assignments, and hopefully not super lengthy announcements or kudos. And now for the next part of it, board matters, I'll ask the chair from the former chair of the now sunsetted committee, ad hoc committee, to share the information that the committee put together after the last board meeting. And this, as I understand it, Chair Moffitt, this is a further development of the 5 major recommendations that the ad hoc committee has put together. You all saw these 5 recommendations at the last board meeting.
We need one more. We just need one more down here. Ben, can you send one more down? Thank you.
Thanks.
Map. So this is, again, just, you all have received the original ad hoc report, which is multi-pages long. It is on board docs for the public to, I'm not pulling it up, but it is there. And if you need a copy, you can email Phyllis Davis. But this is just the feedback and clarification that we received from board members in our limited discussion. What we had intended when we had the original discussion was to pull up the maps, and we did that. We had an explanation of the corridors, the east, west, and central. We talked briefly very briefly around equity across the corridors and the system of schools that is currently listed within our vision and mission statement as a system of schools. And so we wanted to before the new year, put in a document what we had received so that the administration would be able to kind of see what we had heard from the board members that chose to comment around each recommendation. And many did, but this is just some clarification. I'm going to also refer to my co-committee member, who is now President Bolton, around some of the things that she had heard. We did hear a little bit from former board member Jones around anything that she had heard, but we had both fielded discussion from board members. So Board Member Bolton, would you like to add anything that you may have heard or clarification?
Yes, I would emphasize that throughout all of this, including the very last meeting on the 28th, we've had schools present and community members present for this. And what you have before you, as the chair mentioned, is that the 5 major unanimous recommendations from the ad hoc are listed for you. But under each of those recommendations are very specific actions that are proposed based upon the report. And it does deal with specific schools. And if you look at the 5 recommendations, the first one is really about the, if you will, the geographic redesign of the district, among other things. And then the second recommendation talks in terms of equitable access to proper curriculum. And to that, we thank the administration particularly for conducting the school audit at the very beginning of this superintendent's term. And then if you look at the recommendation 3 deals with something that has been a great concern for a long time for all of us, and that is the unsustainability of transportation costs. And so there are some recommended issues there. And I know Mr. Lindy had said, what are the cost factors? All this listing, if you will, generated by the committee in many months, now hopefully can help the administration prepare what it's going to do regarding getting back to us in February, or I think very early March, if not earlier. And I know we're going to have time to talk about this because this becomes part of the budget discussion. The 4th recommendation is something that's very historic for the district, and that's the creation of middle schools and how we might be able to do that. And the reason for doing that is not just instructional, but it's also allegedly cost savings. It's also dealing with our facilities needs, as the administration's pointed out, because our high schools are very much enrolled and we have other buildings that are very under-enrolled. So if I would just encourage, as people look at these 4 recommendations, and then finally the 5th one, which is kind of our time-honored effort regarding high schools of choice, give the opportunity to look at some of the specifics and some of the reasonings, and so we're able to discuss this as a board in the next few times, as well as look at it from a budget standpoint. And I would hope that we will be able to present these 5 recommendations, obviously, to the superintendent, who's aware of most of them. And then also, if Mr. Guston makes sure that this gets sent to Treasurer Wagner, who has been interested in kind of seeing the cost impact, as well as, getting the right people to help us figure out how to implement and what to implement. But you almost need to take the time to read it and say, wow, and figure it out. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I think it has a connection with our strategic plan, our goals and guardrails for sure, and certainly our forecast.
And I just want to add, we weren't prepared today because this was not originally on the agenda, but we weren't prepared today to have the discussion, the continued discussion with the maps. that we had before, but hopefully, and I had intended on asking if we could be on the agenda later on in the month where we could have at least 10 or 15 more minutes to talk about incrementally some of the recommendations and the findings. We spent, I just want to remind the public, we spent 18 months talking about some finding out the data, working with administration, listening to the community, and we did not come up and say we wanted to close any school, but we are looking at efficient usage of our buildings. What buildings are under enrolled? What buildings have specialized programs? Jeremy spent a significant amount of time telling us per corridor, if we were in theory to move things, what would that look like? What would the potential cost savings be? And where we concluded was that we needed to have some further discussion around which model. Would it be 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or would it be 6th, 7th, 8th? From the feedback that we got, it sounded as if it landed on a 6, 7, 8 middle school, not junior high, middle school. The district has already had K through 8 buildings. We have some still, but we've also already had junior highs historically. So this was a middle school model. And what we were looking for is what buildings are under enrolled, where could a middle school be? We need the cost analysis from the administration to kind of give us some feedback. That cost is also indicative of staffing, but then transportation. What does that look like? Where would those students come from? So we're wanting to have more further discussion around, is there cost savings, first of all, with regard to transportation, staffing, building usage, and then what would it be, where would it look, where would it be most effective? And so that's what I was proposing to kind of build into the meetings at the end of the month. That's why we're not really prepared for that today, but you have the full report, which is about 13, 18 pages, and now you have the recommendations with clarification and the feedback that we have received. And so it is now with the administration, and we're always welcome to pull up the old ad hoc committee and form another one if need be around the recommendations and the feedback from administration with regard to the cost analysis once that's provided.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Chair Moffitt? Mr. Lindy.
Thank you, President Bolton. For Member Moffitt, can you just say again first of all, thank you for this. I was trying to understand, is there an ask of us as a board on this tonight, or is it just any general feedback reactions?
So again, it's just feedback reactions. This is the clarification of what the feedback that we received from board members that chose to respond. I also, I've heard back from some board members verbally and via email around asking questions from the original ad hoc and report that we did on the 12th, I believe, of December. But additionally, some board members, it generated some discussion because we weren't able to finish the original presentation timely. So this additional or addendum is really to clarify what board members asked for that they needed, and to also provide some clarification regarding the same 5 recommendations that we originally posed in the original ad hoc. So there's nothing that has changed with regard to the recommendations. There's no ask for today. This is just to provide you, the board, with further clarification. And we had always had the intention to have a discussion and then kind of summarize what we had heard from the discussion. And if you all go back to the original ad hoc report, there are sections in yellow that say discussion with board members. So we had originally set up to have a meeting that had discussion, and then we would provide clarification and feedback originally. So this is not an ask, it's more of an informational, but there will be an ask hopefully later on this month to come back and actually have some further discussion around this.
Is it okay if I?
Sure.
I think I'm just trying to understand. I appreciate that. I know that for me, I could use some time with it to read it and think about it. Because we didn't get this, we just got this now?
Right.
That is correct.
Okay, so it would be helpful to have a little bit of time to think about this, at least speaking for myself. And then the thing I wanted to also check, I wanted to make sure that either the process we're following is the same process we decided at the last board meeting in December, or we're formalizing something different. Because where we ended the meeting on the 11th was that we were sunsetting the ad hoc committee. The recommendations had been made. The administration was going to take those recommendations and provide a response. And they were going to do that as soon as they possibly could, because there are, big budget implications for all of this. And I think if that is still the path and the process we are on, sounds great to me. I think and if it, and clarification, I think certainly makes sense to me too. I just wanted to confirm that overall process had not changed.
Well, I think I shared this with you on the email. For clarification, the process that we had originally stated and agreed to as a board together was exactly the same. Our intention as a committee, there was really no definite date to say, hey, you're going to stop today. This committee had intended to have another meeting December the 28th that was planned for months. And in that meeting, what we had intended to have was further compilation of what the board discussed at the December meeting regarding the recommendations. So that's consistent. We've always wanted to be able to compile everything and put it and align it with our recommendations. So that's what this is. This is technically given to administration as an addendum to the compilation that we discussed as a board and other board members have given feedback for. So now the superintendent or the administration, the administrative team has further clarification with board input from our discussion around those recommendations that have not changed. So I think that we're saying the same thing, but the intention of the committee was to always meet on December the 28th, as evidenced by in the report areas for discussion. So I think we are saying the same thing, but this is now further clarification for the administration to kind of prioritize based on input from the meeting that we had, so that perhaps they could either clarify, prioritize, or whatever they need to do. And it may not take till March to do all those things, but now they've got the voice of all of the other board members together.
Vice President Weinberg.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Moffitt. My question, and yes, I do agree with not President, but Board Member Lindy on the fact of I do want to read this over and really take it all in. And if I have any comments or concerns, are you asking for us to respond, or after I read this, what would you like from board members? Is there anything in specific?
Well, what I had intended to do, because I was told it was not going to be on the agenda today, so we weren't prepared for that. However, I was intending to have further discussion with the board later on in the month and asking the president if we could put it on the agenda. So there was I don't have any presentation for you all. You all have now every bit of information, but hopefully we can open this back up if you do have clarification and if you do have a need for more information, and we can put it on for board matters.
Okay, thank you. And I definitely will look over this, and I do have one question for the superintendent. In terms of, I know that you received this information, and for your team, do you know a timeline? Is it still possibly March that you're thinking that maybe we can possibly get to this, or kind of, shifting through the different things that you do have in front of you?
So this is my first time seeing this as well. And in full transparency, as I think I shared in the last meeting that we had around this, the last board meeting that we had where there was discussion, I nor my team, from looking at the review of the meeting as well in the minutes, we were under the impression that there were no other meetings. And so at that point, that's where we were. I do believe, however, that this is very beneficial as an addendum to what was added. However, it was not what we anticipated. Looking at this, however, I do not know that we will be able to respond any faster, especially if we're also now waiting on an additional feedback cycle from the board around the recommendations. So I think we need clarity on when the recommendations are done, so that we will then know how we can come back and provide to the board what the board is asking us to provide, especially for some of those things that the board is wanting included in this set of budget cycles.
I'm going to, as the chair, suggest this. We know that there are two things happening. We know that the last meeting that we had, the administration agreed that they would now take a look-see and that we had centered our issues around 5 major recommendations. And there was some board reaction to those 5 major recommendations. What the committee did in its regularly scheduled last meeting was then go very specific, and some of this specificity came from about 12 questions from the administration, like when do we do the grandfathering? What do we do with the 7th grader versus the, the 8th grader, or which building they'll be in or whatever. So my hope is that we will continue as a board to discuss. I don't think it should necessarily hold up the administration's work, because they're working from those 5 major recommendations and now have some more specificity. And I think some of this stuff will come up as part of the budget process. But I have, from tonight, I have the request from Member Moffitt that maybe we have another look-see at this, another opportunity to see it after we've been able to study it. And I have a couple other requests too that I want to make mention of, whether it's from the previous people speaking. So I think if we know that the administration's working on this, and the committee's work is done, and it is sunset, and this is the last volley, if you will, from the committee. But I don't think that all of a sudden we are necessarily of the mind that, okay, it's done, now you veto this or say yes to that or whatever, as much as we want to have the administration come back, and the administration has a dialogue with the board about the things they're discovering about it, things that would be good, things that wouldn't be bad, and finding a way to weave some of this into the budget thing. So I think we're all kind of on the same page. This is one of the most comprehensive things I think we've done. Member Craig.
So I think this is where I struggle with this, though, is that I don't know that, to the point President Sellers made earlier today, which is that we have to get certain information out to our schools like yesterday to make decisions. And I think that makes it very difficult if we are still trying to decide what we're going to do with the school, that be part of that discussion. And so I struggle with the idea of any of these changes with the absence of that information as to what can and cannot be done feasibly, what is or is not in the budget, being a part of this year's budget discussion, if it's going to be something that's going to cost anything at this point. Because I think it's not fair to the schools, it's not fair to the other folks who have been kind of waiting for us to do this process. And I know this is a discussion we had in Budget and Finance, with regards to kind of pushing back timelines in order to acquiesce certain recommendations being made. But I'm finding it a little bit harder if we're going to say we're going to have another meeting at the end of January to then discuss this, and then before that we're going to have our meeting as a board for the group, and then still not have that timeline set up for the schools and other folks to build their budgets off of. And so that's the only thing I worry about with the recommendations, is that from a timeline standpoint, they expect the administration and the treasurer's office to be able to put together the information that are needed at the school level and needed in the central office level to address the large budget hole that we have this year. It seems a little bit unfeasible at this point to expect much of any of this to be within this year's budget. So, I mean, I think that's my only concern that I will raise.
Now I'm going to add to that even if you look at the roundtable discussions and the one slide that talks about the big ideas, ad hoc changes are part of the big ideas in this FY25. So it is understood that some of this stuff, if it saves us money or if it's the best dollar spent, it's part of the overall plan. And I don't know how we reach what we have to reach if indeed we don't change the way we do business. So I think unless there's a great interest in continuing this, I would say that this discussion is going to conclude, and people are going to do the study, as Mr. Lindy suggested, the stuff that's been produced. The administration's doing its work. I think there was some degree of consensus about at least the 5 major recommendations, but not all these specific things that were done. So everybody's got work to do, and I think we should probably move on if possible, and give everybody a chance to actually read to see what this looks like. Mr. Lindy.
30 seconds, just that I think there was consensus on hearing the administration's response to the 5 recommendations. I think there I'm with you. I wasn't quite far enough to say I fully endorse all of these absent the additional work.
Sure.
Great. That's my
I
30
agree.
seconds.
But I think we had, as you just said, there was willingness and an interest in sending these 5 recommendations. And so I think we're all saying this is one of the things we're going to have to overcome with one another as we've turned the page, is actually being really ready to say yes and move on. And that's what we're going to be doing. But I appreciate the work, and I'd like to end the discussion right now about this, unless there's something burning to be said. The administration's got their work, we've got our work, and we have to build a board calendar around all the work that we have. We good? All right. We're good. Thank you so much. And we look forward to the administration reporting back, and we look forward to us getting a chance to study all this stuff. And we move on from board matters, inquiries, updates. Mr. Morosky.
Hello, thank you, President Bolton. This may have been asked in December, I don't know, but I was really proud of how we all kind of got a jump on the calendar for next year. And I was just curious if there were updates on the calendar or if I missed it getting released. District calendar for next school year.
It was presented to us and it didn't return to us. And it would have to be coming up, I would imagine, at our January 22nd meeting. I would have it on my list based upon things we haven't gotten back to. Is that work for you, Superintendent?
That's actually correct. From that time, there were
Friday.
questions that were asked that night. We were asked to go back and do some additional engagement around it, which we did. And we've also had from that engagement, we also did the follow-up with the calendar committee. And so we do have a calendar prepared to bring for our next business meeting.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Any other inquiries or updates? Yes?
So we do have confirmation of our joint CPS City Council meeting. It is going to be January the 18th. The Vice Mayor has changed it to City Hall. And so I just need confirmation if you all can attend. She said 5:30 to 7. And so just let me know if you are able, or let Ms. Phyllis know if you are able to attend. And if you have any items, they sent, and I sent an email out, they sent the items that those are all from the Vice Mayor and what she would like to discuss. And she has been compiling those topics with her other committee members. And so those are the areas, and I've sent those to the superintendent to get the team together. But if you do have any areas that you would like for the city to research and provide us information for, please let me know. It's January 18th, which is a Thursday, 5:30 to 7 at City Hall.
At City Hall, thank you very much. And look at your calendars and tell Member Moffitt whether or not you'll be able to attend. And can you possibly resend the agenda items that you got from the Vice Mayor? That would be great. Any other items, inquiries, updates, good jokes, whatever? Assignments? Do we have an assignment? Mr. Morosky, are you giving yourself an assignment for policy?
I feel like I may have one, which we would happily accept, one or two, I don't know. But in response to Mr. Guerin from Local 20 and the meeting he was talking about that is in their contract, we haven't met with them. So I think this assignment is for us to schedule a meeting with him about the apprenticeship. That hadn't happened. And so guidance from anybody who would set that up or just wanted to follow up on that.
I have it on my list of things that come alive out of this meeting. He has requested that we have a meeting with him. And if it suits the board, that's always a decision as to whether we meet and when we meet with collective bargaining agreements. If it's about this specific purpose, this specific issue, because we are beginning negotiations, is there okay about the board to be able to talk about the apprentice program with Mr. Guerin, as long as we perhaps have general counsel and other representatives of the administration there? Questions, comments? We've got a request from Mr. Guerin. Mr. Lindy?
And I apologize if I had stepped out during this part of the meeting for a second. The request was to meet with the board or to meet with the administration?
Meet with the board.
I think our standard practice is that we ask the administration to be the negotiating team with our union partners and that they come back. Am I missing something? I think, at least since I've been on the board, that's the way we've done it.
There was some language, and Mr. Hoying can help with this, some language in the contract or the agreement where we are supposed to meet with him regarding this, and we have not. Which is why
That's what he
Is,
stated.
is that accurate?
And that's what he
Is this
said.
accurate? We don't believe, it's actually not accurate. So
Yeah.
can you clarify, Mr. Hoyne?
And as Mr. Hoyne clarifies it, I would suggest in executive session, the board will decide whether or not to meet with the collective bargaining unit.
So moved.
Mr. Hoyne, give us an update, and then we're not going to pay any attention to you.
The contract only requires that the administration meet with the union, not that the board meet with the union about that topic.
Thank you very much. So this will be a topic in executive session. All right, any other issues before us? Any assignments? Thank you, Mr. Morosky, for that one, kind of. Any comments, Superintendent, Treasurer's Department? We're going to entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and to recollection, the two topics are sale and purchase of property, and also preparation for negotiations. Do I have someone
So
to make that
moved.
motion? Thank you very much. Do I have a
Second.
second? All right. And Mr. Hoyne, do we need a roll call?
Roll call.
Okay.
All right.
He just
Mr.
put his
Craig.
list away.
Yes.
Mr. Lindy.
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffat.
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Yes. We will adjourn to the board conference room, and we will not be returning.